540-0580. This is a show where we answer your legal questions. It's the show where you call in, you tell me, what you need answered. Do you have a concern? You want to get divorced and you're not sure how to do it? You're thinking about adopting a child and you have some questions about how that works. You're injured in a car accident. Maybe you broke some bones, maybe you didn't, and you're not sure, are you getting a good deal from the insurance company? We'll help you out here on the air. Of course, we keep everything anonymous. 540-0580. And if you're a long-time listener or new listener, make sure you go to weekendappointment.com. That's the website throughout the week where you can find resources. You can see questions we've answered for other people. You can see what other people have said because people share advice on that forum. And, of course, as always, I'll be taking some questions from there today. And, again, if you're brand new, you probably don't know, you can get a free will by registering at weekendappointment.com. You have to register there, go to the registered users section, download the free will kit, and send it in to me after you filled it out. Again, talk line number is 540-0580. And I wanted to let you guys know, I put out an email to all the registered users, which I do periodically to remind you about the show and highlight some things going on. I'm going to be starting a series of jury trials in Cumberland County this week, and I just wanted to let everybody know those are open to the public, and a lot of people do come up and watch the trials. So if anybody wants to come up and watch a trial, I'll be on the 4th floor of the Cumberland County Courthouse starting Monday morning. We'll probably be in full swing by 11 a.m., and I think we'll be in trial through at least Monday and Tuesday, maybe later into the week. So feel free to stop by, come up to the 4th floor. Find the courtroom I'm in, sit down in the back, and watch if you want. And then, of course, after the trial's over, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, because obviously I can't talk about the case while it's ongoing. But just want to give everybody an invite. Stop by the Cumberland County Courthouse and see me Monday morning, Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning, if you want to see what a real live criminal jury trial looks like. Tom, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. My talk line number is 540-0580. What's on your mind, Tom?
Hi, Carl. I had questions. I don't know if this is your area of expertise, but the laws regarding the credit card changes. Are you familiar, and do you know what significant changes are coming about?
It is not an area that I have any particular expertise in, so I kind of only know what I guess we all know from the newspapers is that they've changed things around, and supposedly they're going to make things a little more consumer-friendly. I have argued on this show before when I had another caller one time asking me about some issues that obviously allowing people to borrow money at 23, 24, 25% interest is just crazy. But other than that, I don't know what else to tell you.
Very much agreed. If you borrow it at 16% and then are forced to pay it.
Turn that radio down back in the background.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Tom, what happened to you? Well, we lost Tom. Well, he was about to agree with me. And I think what he was about to point out is that when you get these high-interest credit cards and debts, they build up too fast. So, if you're going to borrow money at 25%, maybe if you want to borrow $10,000 for a month or something and you're going to be able to pay it back, then you could do that. But realistically, when you start, putting $100 here, $200 there on a credit card, and they start whacking you with interest at 23, 24, 25, 30%. Most people can't pay those cards down, which is why we often find in the bankruptcy cases that people are spinning their wheels. They're literally not paying some bills, paying down on others, and they're not getting ahead because there's that much interest being added to their bill, and then they add these late fees and all these other things, and you literally end up in a slope that you can't overcome unless you could greatly increase your income. And so those are the people, when we can identify them, that we usually recommend for bankruptcies. So if you're out there and you are in one of those positions where you've got mountains of credit card debt and you're having trouble paying everything, you need to go see a bankruptcy attorney and have them look over and determine, are there things we can do short of bankruptcy to help you out? It's amazing how many times you don't have to actually go bankrupt, but with the help of an attorney, you can restructure the situation or ultimately use the bankruptcy vehicle to get rid of the excess debt and put yourself back in a position where you can move forward. I do want to turn to weekendappointment.com for a second. I want to remind you the talk line number is 540-0580. But there's a note here that says, keep saying the talk line numbers over and over again. So that's why I do it, folks. If you know the number already, but we always have new callers who don't know that it's 540-0580. Weekendappointment.com. Again, I told you, make sure you go there and register as a user so you can get our free offers. That said, I got a great question. I get this a lot. I get this in the email once in a while, and I get another post online. I'm just curious if you know and could discuss what I'm legally required to put on the 2010 census form. I saw a sample question asked about what time I leave for work. I really wonder why the federal government needs to know that. Thanks. Well, I did a previous post, and we're going way back on the census, where I quoted some of the census law. But basically, there is no consensus on the census as to what should or shouldn't be asked. A strict constitutional construction would seem to say, you can count the number of people, and that would seem to be it. But then you say, well, maybe we should at least ask sex, age, race. Maybe there's other vital data that the government could use. And that's the sticking point. Is the census about collecting data the government could use, or is it about collecting the data that the founding fathers required be collected in the Constitution and that alone? And the answers are all over the map. It varies on your political stripes. It varies on your experience with census data. Some people, some vendors, and some businesses use census data as an integral part of their business. So way back in April, I had a post on there, and I linked back to that from that fellow's question, where we put the census law up, and the refusal or neglect to answer a question or giving false answers can result in a $100 fine, and if it's a false answer, up to $500 for refusal or neglect to answer. So yes, you got to answer those census questions, and we can go on and on about what happens. But if you read the posts online, you can follow from there and just see the discussion that enveloped. And a lot of people get upset about the silly questions. That makes sense to me. On the other hand, they do use census data to develop a lot of databases that marketers can use and bureaucrats can use and all your other favorite people to help figure out, who needs what and what kinds of services are needed. Asking people what time they leave for work in the morning helps look for trends about road and traffic and things like that. So they're legitimate uses of data. The better question is whether the federal government should be mandating that you answer those questions by law. I also had a question, which it's getting timely here because the bow season is about to start and the hunting seasons are all coming in. And they were wondering if there were any laws, health or otherwise, pertaining to the butchering of some animals, such as deer. Game animals are absolutely regulated. If you're a commercial processor, in other words, you're going to charge money for it or do it for other people, you have to follow some regulations. And I posted the regulation on the website, so you'll be able to find it and read about it. But absolutely, you've got to follow all the health laws, and there are certain health laws just for game. And I know generally they don't want you processing game animals in the same facility at the same time you're doing domestic animals. Obviously, that's a disease prevention issue. But yes, absolutely, those things are highly regulated, just like any other kind of meat handling is, although it has some of its own regulations. There's a butcher or a baker out there, probably the butcher, who wants to call in and tell us a little bit about that. I'd be happy to put you on the air so you can explain what special things you have to do for your deer processing or your game processing. And I got to go to break here, folks, but 540-0580, 540-0580, and come back from the break. We'll answer some more of your questions. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580, 540-0580. For those of you that don't know or just joining us for the first time, my name's Carl Rominger. I'm an attorney at law here in the central Pennsylvania area. I practice throughout the mid-state, and I want to encourage you, if you have a legal question, to call in. We'll answer it here on the air. And, of course, throughout the week or at any other point when you really need to sit down with a lawyer, you can call my law office. If you go to weekendappointment.com, you can get my email, and it goes right to me. You can get our law office phone number, and I have a staff of attorneys, myself included, who will sit down and help you get through your day-to-day legal problems. And if you're wondering, well, do we handle that kind of problem? Just call and ask. If we don't do it, I've got a list of people I like and know who do certain things we don't, who we would gladly refer you to, and even give you a little general advice in the meantime. Paul, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hello.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, if there's two people involved in a motor vehicle accident, one of them is at fault beyond any doubt,
Okay.
and they each have the same insurance company.
Okay.
Do they need an attorney?
Well, I'll ask it. I'll put it to you this way. Obviously, we worry about the concept of whose fiduciary duty is to who, and imagine that you're selling a piece of real estate and somebody else is buying it, right?
Yeah.
And you sit down at the table with the same attorney representing both sides. And what if there's a little bit of a problem or a snag, and one of the seller or the buyer says, "Hey, I don't like the way such and such is going, or I don't like the way this is happening." There's a conflict that results where the attorney has to decide, well, whose best interest do I better represent here?
Right.
And so, now the insurance company will tell you, well, we can prevent that because what we do see is we've got employee A who works in one department handling it on the one side, and we've got employee B who's in another facility somewhere else, and these guys don't even know each other, so you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, but who's their boss, and whose best interest do they have to look out for?
Yeah.
So the short answer is, and I say this in all sincerity, and I know somebody's going to say, all you attorneys just say this. If you've been in an automobile accident and you settle it on your own with the insurance company, you may do yourself a horrible disservice, even if you think you're getting a reasonable amount of money. And I'm going to give you two examples of where I've seen this happen. I had one where a client came to me, had been injured, had made a full recovery, so they thought, settled their claim for $8,000 or something like this about 4 months after the accident. A couple months later, they're at the Hershey Medical Center, and the doctor's saying, it's a very unusual injury you have here. You weren't in a car accident in the last, few weeks or anything. And he says, well, I was, but it was like 6 months ago. $100,000 in medical bills later, a couple of big surgeries, reconstructing a diaphragm and all these kinds of things. And they come into my office and they say, I only got $8,000 and I missed a year of work. And what do I do? Well, you signed what's called a release. And worse, you have other coverages available to you besides the other guys because you have something called uninsured, underinsured. But you have a duty to notify that carrier of your intent to settle so you could protect that. So, but you're not going to know that if you don't do that kind of work.
Right.
So I guess my lecture, and the other ones that I've seen are people who settle their claims and they're very happy, very proud of themselves that they got $2,000 or $10,000. And I've just settled a similar claim, for $45,000 or $85,000 for a client.
Right.
And I'm looking at it and I'm going, I know you didn't want to give me 25% of that or a third of that. I understand that. But after I take the third off what I just got this guy, he still has more than you. Should have got an attorney. So, hey, if you disagree with me, people out there go, all right, it's just an attorney saying that. We believe from the attorney standpoint that usually people net more with lawyers involved than they do without lawyers. And I'll give you one final story. I let a guy I knew, he came to me and he had an accident. He says, I'm going to handle it myself, and then I'm going to hand it over to you if I'm not happy. And I said, well, okay, you can do that. And he got the insurance company up after a year and a half of working him over to $6,000. And he was getting real close to statute of limitations, and they said, take it or leave it. It was a little motorcycle accident. It wasn't really a big deal. And I said to him, just give me a percentage of anything over that amount. He's a buddy of mine. I said, just let me see what I can do. And I sold it a couple days later for about $15,000. And the reason is because there's a different value to your case. Insurance companies use a computer a lot of times to determine the value of your case. They put in where it happened, what the injuries were, what the jury verdicts in that area are like, and one of the other parameters is whether you're represented by counsel or not. Yep. And all I want you to know out of this is the simple answer to your question is always should have an attorney, but particularly where it's the same company, you got to be concerned. And so I would tell you for that reason you should have an attorney. I would tell you for all the other reasons I just said you should have an attorney.
Well, I figured if this was any case where you needed one, sure would be a good idea to have one.
And Paul, I know this I'm just prattling on here, but what I'm concerned about when people don't have attorneys is they don't value claims right. I have people that value claims way too high. They think they're entitled to $1 million because a drop of hot coffee got on their big toe. And I have to chase them out of the office and tell them they're crazy. But an attorney is usually going to be honest with you because we're on a percentage basis in personal injury cases. I usually charge 25% on a contingency fee basis. So that's like a fourth. If we have to go to court and trial, then it's like a third. But I'm not going to sit around and try to help somebody recover $1,000. So if it's not worth your while, and we're on the same team, the more I can get you, the more I get. So generally speaking, you're going to do better with an attorney in any auto type claim, any malpractice type claim.
I figured if the attorney's working for me in a case like this, I hope he makes enough to retire.
Yeah, I like the way you think. The other problem you run into, though, and you got to put this in the back of your head, is, again, there are reasonable settlement values. And I sometimes fight with clients. They're being offered something that's a very reasonable settlement, and they want more. And I sometimes have to say, now, do you want more because you think you're entitled to more, or because for the last 6 months in your head you started building an addition on your house?
Yeah.
Because if it's because you build an addition on your house, you better tear that down in your mind and get back to the facts and the law and the science of how we do this.
Right.
Hey, Paul, great question.
Hey, thanks for the advice.
All right, good luck with that.
Bye.
540-0580, that's a talk line number. You're on with Carl Rominger. Dawn, you're on WHP 580.
Hi, Carl.
Yeah.
Hi, enjoy your show.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, I'll get right to the point. I got a speeding ticket. I travel. I was out in Arizona, north of Phoenix, and I got a speeding ticket on one of these cameras that they affix to the vehicles that are parked along the highway. And it said 76 and a 65. I was in a rental car, and they gave me three options. Pay $181.50. B, say I wasn't driving the car and all that stuff, and then
right.
C, go to the court and try my case. But I'm more concerned. I haven't had a speeding ticket in 20 years, and I'm more concerned about the insurance.
Right.
Points on the insurance, and whether or not this is even valid. Oh, I shouldn't say valid, but it just seems. I went on the internet and I Googled it up, and boy, there's a whole thread on people who got burnt, with this same thing saying it's a scam or
right.
this or that. But I just want to know what, if any, options I have.
Well, a couple different things we would do. If you, and I'll just pretend you came and sat down with me in the office.
Right.
First thing I'd do is look up the citation information, and I would get out this really neat book that I have. A guy in my office named Mike Palermo does a lot of traffic work, and Mike found this book, which he introduced me to, and it's very fascinating. It allows us to look up. Here's the short of it. It allows us to look up any violation in any other state,
right,
and then find out exactly how any other state will look at it or handle it. So the first thing we would do is look if it'll even show up on your Pennsylvania driver's record or not.
Right.
And if we determine that it wouldn't show up on your Pennsylvania driver's record, we probably just have you pay it. On the other hand, if it looks like it's going to become a permanent part of your driver's record, or it's going to result in points or some other collateral consequence, then we'll decide which way we want to handle it. One would be, now if you said I wasn't a driver, we could dispute that, but you're an honest guy, so we're not going to do that. And I wouldn't let you be dishonest if you told me you were the driver and then suddenly tried to say you weren't.
Right.
But we would have two options. One is we would contact counsel in Arizona or wherever the ticket's from. And in some states, Pennsylvania, for instance, you don't have to come to your own traffic hearing. So we do a lot of traffic hearings for over-the-road truckers, both locally and from out of state, who hire us knowing that, we always tell them, if you can make it to the hearing, please come, because it's much better if you're there.
Right.
But the law specifically allows me to represent you without you there. So I sometimes go and sit down, and the trooper brings out his sheets of paper and starts testifying, and there's no client there. And they don't have to be there. So we would get you counsel in Arizona to go to the hearing and take care of it. Other times we can do it even without a hearing because, and again, that's not a live officer. That sounds like a camera, so I don't know how do you deal with a robot. But a lot of times if we have an over-the-road trucker and, he was just a little over and whatnot, you can call the police officer up and say, here's the issue. You wrote him up for a 3111, and it looks like you didn't want to give him any points. But it turns out that Nebraska thinks a 3111 is the worst offense in the world for some reason because of the way they classify offenses. So when PennDOT reports it to Nebraska, he's going to get hit on his CDL. But we found an offense, which in Pennsylvania, most truckers wouldn't want, but it's going to be fine for him in Nebraska. Would you change it? And the officer says, sure. So in your case, well, we would want to determine if you could cheaply have an Arizona attorney get rid of it for you. When I say cheaply, anywhere from $200 to $400.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to maybe call your office, but a little caveat to the thing is that I also got a bill from my rental car company for speeding in their car for another $25.
Oh, they wanted to bump you for it.
I never heard of such a thing, but I appreciate the advice, and I'll call your office next week.
All right, Don, good luck.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
540-0580. Let me see if I can take one more call before I go into break here. Bill, you're on WHP 580.
Hello, Carl.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good, man.
Hey, we want to incorporate a website as a nonprofit corporation.
Okay.
And my question is, on this form from the state, it says, check one of the following. Corporation is organized on a non-stock basis, and the other option is option for nonprofit, cooperative, corporation only, cooperative, corporation only. The corporation is organized on a stock share basis. So I guess the question is non-stock or stock?
Yeah, and the answer on that is probably non-stock, but I'd have to really think about it because you're going to do a not-for-profit, so we'd have to take a look at what you're trying to accomplish with it, how you want to structure the entity itself, and who's going to be in charge, and how that's going to work. But I think generally nonprofits are non-stock entities.
Okay. Well, what it is, we're going to evaluate school textbooks because a lot of them are really bad.
Right. What I would strongly urge you to do if you're filling this out and planning on filing it by yourself, I hate to say this because it sounds horrible, but it's easier and cheaper to put together a for-profit corporation in the early end. Not-for-profits do have certain rules and ways you need to structure them so that they not only meet Pennsylvania's guidelines, but also the taxing guidelines, etc. So what you want to do, and I would, off the air, I could refer you to, if you just send me an email, refer you to an attorney that does that kind of work, which is putting together not-for-profits so that you get everything right the first time.
A nonprofit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's a little more complicated than it seems. There's some rules about how you create them and where the money for creation came from, and how you want to make sure your structure is good right from the beginning, so you don't have any taxing regulations later on that trip you up. Like when I go to the Fish and Game Club, they're always concerned about members versus non-members to keep the not-for-profit status, and that's for groups or associations. Nonprofit corporations have different rules.
Yeah, well, that's the next question. For nonprofit corporations only, do they have members or no members?
Well, and again, you can have members or you can have no members. But there's rules on whichever way you do it, there's going to be different tax consequences, meaning even though you don't pay tax, you have to do things certain ways or else your tax-free status can be disallowed. And now you've exhausted my expertise in this area because I know no more except to tell you who to go see.
Okay, who do I go see?
All right, send me an email.
Send you an email.
Yep, just go to weekendappointment.com, okay?
Okay.
All right, man. Thanks very much.
Yep, bye.
We're going to go into break here, 540-0580. When we get back, we'll talk with Jeff and Jim. Hey, welcome back, 540-0580. By the way, I want to take a moment here to plug something. And I put them up under Friends of the Show, Experts and Resources on the website. My producer, Shane, does his own fantasy football podcast. So him and who are you doing that with, Shane?
It's me and Matt Meyer.
And what do you guys do exactly so the listeners know?
What we do is we pretty much just banter about fantasy football and other football stuff and just anything related to football. We have just good discussion. They're not real long, so it's a quick listen, and you get a lot of good information from them. And
I know, I did hear Matt Meyer had picked RJ's team, actually, hadn't he? Hadn't he helped RJ pick a fantasy football team of some sort?
Yeah, I think he did. He helped him on the WHP website. You can go on the WHP website. Here's another plug for you, the WHP website, and play fantasy football in there.
Cool. So anyhow, if you love me, you like the show, check out Shane's Fantasy Football Podcast, and feel free to give us a little feedback on it. Okay, I better go to some callers here because I think I'm getting my board backed up. Jeff, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. My talk line number is 540-0580. What's your question?
I I'm Jim.
Yeah, Jeff, you're live on the air, my friend.
Okay. I just finished a construction project at my home and got a construction loan from a local bank. And as we come to a close, my impression when we went into this was they were just going to streamline the loan and turn it into a conventional mortgage.
Okay.
And we paid a lot of closing costs and pretty high percentage rate because of the construction loan. And as I took in the final paperwork, I had the feeling, and I'm just kind of taken off guard because I wasn't getting direct answers, that there were going to be in the additional closing costs were going to be a lot of the things that I've paid duplicating, which isn't streamlining the loan.
Right.
So I'm wondering, I'm feeling like I have something that's going to come down that's not going to be what I was originally expecting. And I didn't know if I have a pretty good understanding of mortgages, but I don't know if there's anything I can do about this. I'm going to sign the paperwork and things, but
yeah, that's the big question. The big question is, what did the paperwork you sign actually say?
Right.
And that's probably what we would need to look at. The other thing is, I don't know how long you've used this bank or how much experience you have with them. Sometimes, if you're a good customer, you can also kind of, if it's not the mega super duper giant bank, sometimes you can kind of go to them and say, hey, listen, why are we doing this to me? Well, I thought I was going to be with you for years to come.
Right. Well, I was kind of planning, I've gone in and talked to the main office and let them know my expectations. And that's sort of when I started getting the blank stares. And I thought, there's miscommunication along these lines somewhere. And so I put it in writing what my expectations were when I turned in the paperwork. And I haven't heard from them, but they weren't quick to get to me the last time we had a draw.
Right. Well, here's
about 3 weeks.
Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking you gave them your expectations in writing, so I'm going to give you a gold star for that because you did exactly what I always tell people to do. Phone conversations, they just fade into the air. Right. Face-to-face discussions, they might as well never have happened. I mean, and that's what, because you're counting on everybody to remember things a certain way, but if you memorialize it in writing, and a lot of times I yell at people for not doing it, your instinct was perfect there, so gold star. We're a little premature to determine if you need to take any action yet because, lo and behold, they might just come back and say we can meet all your expectations.
Right.
The next question is, if they can't meet all your expectations, is there any area where they don't quite meet your expectations that you can live with, or are they so far off the mark that maybe you have to part ways, but you're stuck because right now, last I could tell, they're not throwing mortgages around like they were a couple of years ago.
Well, we were lucky to get this in the first place.
Right.
So, I understood, we had to look pretty hard to find a bank that was doing construction or anything like that. But, one of the important things when we sat down originally was that we streamline this. I know that they can do this. I even had mentioned that if they were thinking of putting this on the secondary market, I asked if they did non-conforming.
Right.
And would hold this in-house, at least for a period.
Mm-hmm.
And, at that original conversation, we can work we can work something out. But now as we come to a close, I'm getting the feeling that wasn't necessarily going to be the case.
Gotcha. And probably somewhere in one of the written documents it says no oral representations are included herein, and specifically the parties agree that exactly. Precatory language of, we can work something out means absolutely nothing.
Right.
All right, Jeff, keep an eye on it. If you're not, at some point, if you're not completely happy. The other thing is, I don't know if you used an attorney for your closing or not.
No, this wasn't a traditional closing. We just kind of, they didn't do a title search or anything like that on the property. Gotcha.
So. And so sometimes I do encourage people to consider getting an attorney involved in the original closings involving a house. I just did a refi Friday afternoon. And sometimes people say, you could just use a title company. You can but with the attorney there and present, we would have gone over the terms in the first instance and maybe had a better feel from where it was actually headed.
Sure.
When I do a closing, I probably bore the heck out of everybody because I sit there and explain what each document means and why we're signing it. And every once in a while, you catch something in there and you say, wait a minute, I'm not going to let you sign this. We need to talk to somebody.
Right.
All right, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Okay. Jim, you're on WHP 580 with attorney Carl Rominger.
Good afternoon, sir.
How are you?
Just fine. I have a question. I live in a housing development that has an association.
An HOA, a homeowners association.
Yes. And the association has a landscaper that does the lawn mowing and so forth. And I discovered here in the back of the house a week or so ago where I feel that the trimmer had, in the process of trimming around the house, unfortunately it's the only corner of the house where the grass comes right up to the siding.
Mm-hmm.
And the corner trim, the bottom of the trim, was shattered in an attempt, I believe, because there's grass right underneath it.
Right.
Where they were trying to trim the grass and probably held the trimmer there too long, and it shattered the corner guard.
Right.
The corner trim. I can't prove who did it or exactly when, because I don't normally walk around to the back of the house. And I've already contacted the landscaper as well as the homeowner association regarding this, about the damage. And I've not heard anything. It's been a week.
And let me ask you two questions.
Sure.
You're not in like a condo or a townhouse where you don't own the exterior. You're in like standalone homes where you own the exterior of your house as well.
I own the exterior of the house. It's a duplex.
And so you're responsible for that repair, not the homeowners association, if it just generally needs repaired.
That's correct.
And your problem is going to be, how do you prove how it broke? And maybe the homeowners association or the trimmer goes ahead and pays for it, or maybe they don't. But then you get caught in this quandary of, if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? And if you are not present when the trimmer breaks the thing and he's not honest enough to tell anybody about it, how do you prove it? Well, maybe somebody could look at it and determine forensically what happened, but you might be out of luck without proof if nobody's going to own up to it.
Mm-hmm. The location or the circumstances in which
is something that's up for the fact finder, and that's what I mean. I mean, a judge could go, you know what, based on what I'm hearing, I think this all makes sense that this was the trimmer that did it. But maybe they point something else out and say, that's not clear that we did it. And it's your burden of proof to prove by preponderance of the evidence that they did it if you were in a lawsuit, if they're not going to admit to it.
I'm not familiar with courts or anything. A small claims court that...
Yeah, same burden of proof, which is basically, that you show by preponderance the evidence that who did it. So that's your burden. But small claims court's a good place to go because sometimes maybe they'll settle before they'll even go. I got to go into break, my friend. Good luck with that.
All right, thank you.
540-0580. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back. Carl Rominger here. I'm an attorney at law. For those of you who are just joining us, this is a show where we answer your legal questions. 540-0580. And, of course, gratuitous plug here. If you need an attorney throughout the week or the month or whenever, feel free to go to weekendappointment.com, shoot me an email, or call the office. We've got 4 attorneys total in the office, and we can help you with just about anything you might have. And if we can't, we'll send you to somebody who will help. Let's see here. I had a question here. Would Penn's Woods put this on? Carl, permit me to ask a question just for fun, if I may. Well, you already posted it, so I can't say no. I was looking on Craigslist in Harrisburg, PA, in the barter section, and there was an ad from Thursday that reads, "Looking for a lawyer to represent me in a criminal case. Very open and shut, easy case." Those are famous last words, by the way, when the client tells you that. That means that they think it's very easy, open, shut, and easy. And that means there's something lurking in there. "Willing to trade my automotive services. Please email for more details. Thanks. Serious inquiries only." My question is, what are the odds this guy's going to find someone to take him up on the request? The answer is maybe, maybe not. If I had a car that needed $1,000 worth of work or needed some kind of major repair, I might be willing to make the trade. If it's, you're going to change my oil and that's like $40 in oil change times how many oil changes, and maybe you're not in business anymore. I mean, maybe that's not a trade you're going to make. But he may find particularly a younger attorney who is needing that kind of work to swap. The other theory would be, as an attorney, is maybe the guy will turn out to be a good client in the long run, and can help you with your car. I don't know. It's interesting that people would try to swap for legal services, but I'm not above that. I got 2 tackle boxes full of fishing lures one time, maybe 8 or 10 years ago. Nice lures, by the way, and a rod and reel that a guy gave up fishing and said, would I look over some documents and do some things. And not too long ago, I was in the Market Cross Pub in Carlisle, and somebody gave me 2 beers to answer a legal question. So I guess you can find attorneys who will barter for services. Howard, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hello, Counselor. Sir, I'm calling with regard to an incident that occurred recently. It involved a Chicago city policeman who apparently entered a controlled access parking garage as part of an apartment building, and proceeded to ticket people for not having a certain kind of city parking sticker. This policeman, in the process of ticketing many people in the parking garage, was confronted by the security guard, the hotel security guard. The police officer said to him, "It's okay for him to be there." The security guard said, "It is absolutely not okay for you to be here. You have no warrant. You have no pass to enter this building. You must leave." At that time, the police officer left the building, but all of those residents who had gotten ticketed, and the tickets were $120 each,
right,
still had to pay for those tickets. Now, the question is, would these residents, in your opinion, have a legal recourse, given that police officer apparently entered the building? What he did, the way he got in the building, was he pulled up to the door, which is remotely controlled. He couldn't get in, so another resident pulled up behind him. Both of them had to drive all the way back to...
Okay, wait, you're getting into too much detail here. Long and short of it, he entered without a warrant. He went into a place he wasn't allowed to be, and he wrote up some tickets.
Correct.
The answer is you have something called suppression. If there was a constitutional violation and you file the appropriate motion, you don't have to pay the ticket. So I'll give you an example. I have some kids charged with underage drinking, and the police illegally detain them without specific suspicion. So I will file a motion, and the judge will say, here, what happened. When he finds out what happens, he's going to go ahead and say, well, that's a violation of their constitutional rights because you didn't have individualized suspicion. You can't just round up a group of kids because you think they might have been drinking. And they won't be able to be prosecuted because all the evidence collected, including identification, would be suppressed. So that's your legal remedy in a criminal matter. They may also have a trespass or a 1983 action, although he has qualified immunity and the harm doesn't sound like it's very serious from the standpoint of any physical or personal injury, so the damages would probably be nominal. But yeah, they could get it suppressed, meaning they wouldn't have to pay the ticket.
Well, thanks very much, Counselor. I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Fred, you're on WHP 580 with attorney Carl Rominger.
Hello.
Yes, Fred.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Carl, I'm a landlord. On your first 10-day notice to quit notice that you give to people, how long is that thing good for or whatever? In other words, some people we let go, a couple weeks extra or whatever, then give them another one, actually.
Yeah. The answer is probably it's probably good as long as you bring an action in short order for possession. The problem that you run into is if you give it to them in January and then you file in March, but you've collected February's rent.
Yeah.
We're probably going to say it's stale at that point. But I don't recall ever running into that specific issue because I think we've just always said issue a new one.
Issue a new one. Okay. On the other side, I just took some renters to court and got the eviction notice. But now I have to wait 10 days to have the sheriff out, right?
Once you get the eviction notice, the judgment of possession, you've got to give them a certain up to 10 days because they have an appellate period. And after the 10 days, then they give them a notice, and then they get an additional, I want to think it's 24 or 28 days before they have to physically be out, before they actually literally pick them up and chuck them.
But what if they pay you some rent in that time?
It depends if it's a pay and stay or not. If it's a pay and stay and they pay off the rent entirely, you can't evict them.
No, he just gave me a couple dollars on $2,000 that he owed me.
Yeah, then probably not enough to do it. He's got to pay the full amount to stay.
Right, and if I let this thing drag out, say he gives me $200 a week for a couple of weeks here, and then I go ahead and evict him, is that still good? Or
Yeah, and that's the question. I don't know. At some point, he's going to say, I thought we were back on a payment arrangement. So I'd be careful about that. I understand what you're trying to do. You want to get as much money out of him as possible before you kick him out the door. Yeah. But the flip side, you got to be careful, because I think at some point he can say, wait, I thought we worked everything out.
Yeah, I understand that. Oh.
All right, Fred.
Okay, thank you much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I wanted to take another one from the internet. Penswoods had a more serious question on there. Has a friend who's got gun problems and was never convicted of anything, but does have an arrest record. Well, first of all, he should do an expungement. If you are arrested for something and you have no conviction, you're entitled to an expungement in Pennsylvania, meaning we can get it off your record. So if you were ever arrested for anything and it didn't result in a conviction, generally speaking, it can be expunged unless the Commonwealth can prove a good reason for it not to be expunged. And there's no time limit on when you have to ask for an expungement. So that's what they would need to do. But your specific question is, where do I go and how do I find the case file on the arrest? Well, the short answer is you need to find the county where the charges are lodged, or he needs to get a certified copy of his criminal history, which will show what county and where and what date, and then that's the place you would start to look for it, and then you would also use that for the expungement data. So, Penswoods, you should be able to help your friend out. Expungement, I just did one this week. In fact, somebody had ARD for a DUI, and some counties don't automatically remove it from your record. So in Franklin County, where we did it, there's a $111 filing fee. Obviously, I had to draft some documents, and that's how we took care of that. Well, that's my music. That tells me I've just got 1 minute left. So I want to remind you, go to weekendappointment.com. You can get my email there. You can get my office phone number. Call our lawyers anytime during the week if you need a lawyer. And post your questions on weekendappointment.com. And all you registered users, make sure you go back, get on the website, and help folks out by giving us some of your experiences as well. I'll see you next week.